You save for a decade, you fight through bidding wars, and you finally buy that perfect Texas home. You turn on the faucet to celebrate, and all you get is a weak trickle of brown water and a notice that your rates are doubling. Again. That's the moment you realize your home's foundation isn't just concrete. It's built on a water supply that's evaporating, taking your equity with it. Stay with us on this road trip, and you will learn which Texas cities are financial mirages, where the water runs out before the 30-year mortgage does. This is your tour of the top 10 Texas thirst traps, cities where your home value is set to evaporate with the water supply. Everyone talks about the Texas boom, but they whisper about the failing wells and cracking reservoirs beneath it. We found one town that's literally trucking in water while still approving 1,000-home subdivisions. Hit like if you're tired of the official story, and subscribe so you don't get trapped by it. Let's hit the road.
Number 10. Killeen. Our road trip starts in what feels like the heart of Texas suburbia, a place that seems, on the surface, like a perfectly stable, affordable entry point into the housing market. You drive into Killeen, and everything looks normal. But this is the perfect place to begin, because Killeen is a masterclass in compound risk. The most obvious problem is that its entire economy rests on one pillar, the Fort Cavazos military base. According to the Texas Real Estate Research Center at Texas A&M, the Killeen-Temple metro area has already seen a significant cooling, with home sales slowing and inventory climbing through the first half of 2025. When the nation's largest military installation gets a cold, Killeen's housing market gets pneumonia. You see endless rows of modest brick homes built in the 90s and 2000s with tidy lawns and two-car garages. It's a picture of middle-class stability. The median home price hovers just under $300,000, a number that screams attainable. But that price tag hides the town's twin vulnerabilities. The first is obvious. If a few thousand troops get reassigned, the for sale signs multiply overnight and your equity vanishes. But the second risk, the one nobody talks about on the listing, is the water. Killeen pulls its water from Belton Lake, a reservoir fed by the Leon River. During severe Texas droughts, that lake shrinks dramatically, exposing old roads and forgotten foundations. You're buying a home that relies on a single employer and a single, vulnerable body of water. Imagine trying to sell when the base is downsizing and the city has just announced Stage 3 water restrictions because the lake is 30 feet below normal. That's not a market correction. It's a buyer's nightmare. It's the affordability itself that makes it a trap, luring you in before you realize the foundation is cracked. Is a $300,000 home worth the gamble on a town with two massive points of failure?
Number 9. Beaumont. You head east, leaving the dry hills behind and driving straight into the thick, soupy air of the Gulf Coast. The landscape flattens, the trees get draped in moss, and you roll into Beaumont. And here, the paradox of the Texas water crisis smacks you right in the face. This isn't a city that's running out of water, it's a city that's drowning in it. The problem is, most of it is the wrong kind, and the system that's supposed to deliver the good kind is a disaster waiting to happen. Beaumont is a monument to what happens when you build a city in a hurricane's favorite alley. You're not just buying a house, you're buying a front-row ticket to the next biblical flood. When Hurricane Harvey hit, it didn't just flood homes, it knocked out the entire city's water supply for weeks. Can you imagine? A major American city completely without running water? According to reports from the Texas Tribune at the time, the failure was catastrophic. That wasn't a freak accident, it was a preview. The city's infrastructure is old, vulnerable, and one bad storm away from collapsing again. So, while the median home price looks tempting, hovering in the low 200,000s according to Zillow data for early 2025, that number is a lie. It doesn't include the real cost, it doesn't include the nonstop worry from June through November, and it certainly doesn't include the flood insurance, which, thanks to FEMA's updated Risk Rating 2.0, is becoming so expensive it can rival a mortgage payment. You have water trying to get into your house from the sky and the ground, and the water coming out of your faucet is one pump failure away from being unusable. It's a home ownership model built on sand, surrounded by swamp, and financed by prayer. How much of a discount on a house is enough to make you gamble on its foundation washing away?
Number 8. Corpus Christi. You cruise south along the Gulf, the air thick with salt. You pull into Corpus Christi, and it looks like the postcard Texas dream. You see the bay, the iconic harbor bridge, the retired aircraft carrier USS Lexington sitting proudly in the water. It's beautiful. But here, the water you see is not the water you get. In fact, the water you get in your home is a citywide running joke that stopped being funny about a decade ago. Welcome to the land of the perpetual boil water notice. For years, this city has been trapped in a cycle of infrastructure failures. According to the Corpus Christi Caller-Times, which has been documenting this crisis for what feels like an eternity, the city's water mains are ancient, prone to breaks that contaminate the entire system. You could buy a gorgeous $350,000 home with a bay view and still not be able to trust the water coming out of your own faucet without boiling it first. Think about that. You're paying a coastal premium for third-world utility reliability. But don't worry, the city has a plan. A massive multi-billion-dollar desalination plant. And who's going to foot that bill? You are. It's a guaranteed tax and water rate hike baked into every single property in the city for the foreseeable future. So when you see a median home price that seems reasonable for a coastal city, as reported by Zillow for early 2025, remember to add the invisible price tag, your share of $1 billion public works project. Your water bill is on a trajectory to become a second mortgage, a slow financial bleed that will last for decades. It's a hidden liability that no realtor will ever mention. If your city proposed $1 billion project that would effectively double your water bill, would you vote yes to fix the problem, or would you sell your house to escape the bill? Number 7. Midland. You point your car west and drive for hours. The landscape gets flatter, drier, and more brutal. And then, out of the dust, you see it. Midland. This isn't just a city, it's a testament to human audacity. They built a metropolis on top of the largest oil deposit in the country, in the middle of the Chihuahuan Desert, a place that actively tries to kill anything that needs water to survive. You're not buying a home here, you're buying a stake in a high-stakes gamble between geology and hydrology. The real estate market here is a roller coaster strapped to the price of crude oil. When oil booms, a mediocre 3-bedroom house can fetch $450,000. When it busts, the market floods with desperate sellers. Data from the Permian Basin Board of Realtors shows this vicious cycle repeating every few years, with 2025 showing signs of another slowdown. But the price of oil is only half the risk. The other half is the water. Midland gets its water from the Ogallala and Edwards Trinity aquifers, ancient, finite sources of water that are being drained at an alarming rate. And here's the kick in the teeth. You are in direct competition for that water with the very industry that justifies the city's existence. According to research from Duke University, a single fracking well in the Permian Basin can use millions of gallons of water. They are pumping the city's lifeblood out of the ground to blast oil out of shale, and you're supposed to feel secure buying a home here? It is a city drinking its own milkshake, and the straw is getting shorter every single day. The high salaries are the bait. The desiccated aquifer is the trap. When the choice is between a 6-figure salary and a guaranteed water supply for the next 30 years, which one do you pick? Number 6. El Paso. You keep pushing west until the landscape becomes a vast canvas of brown earth and jagged mountains under a relentless sun. This is El Paso. From a distance, nestled against the Franklin Mountains, it looks like a fortress of civilization. But up close, you realize it's a city built on the edge of impossibility. The water story here isn't one of neglect or poor infrastructure. It's a story of a head-on collision with geological reality.
You are, quite literally, in the middle of the desert. The city's life depends on two sources, and both are in critical condition. First is the Rio Grande. And let's be honest, by the time it gets here, it's often more of a Rio suggestion than a Rio Grande, a contested trickle of water that has to be negotiated for with Colorado, New Mexico, and an entire other country. The second source is the Hueco Bolson, an underground aquifer of what is essentially fossil water. Local hydrologists from the University of Texas at El Paso have pointed out for years that this is like a savings account that was filled thousands of years ago, and we are now draining it with no hope of a new deposit. Yet, the housing market chugs along. You can find a decent single-family home here for around $225,000, according to early 2025 data from Redfin. It feels like an incredible bargain for a major American city, but the price tag is a mirage. El Paso has one of the most advanced water treatment systems in the world, including a massive desalination plant to make brackish groundwater drinkable. This is an engineering marvel born of pure desperation. And those marvels are fantastically expensive to build and run, costs that inevitably find their way into your water bill and property taxes. You're not just buying a house, you're subsidizing a permanent, high-tech war against the desert. Is a city that has to spend billions to make its own water drinkable a miracle of innovation or a warning sign disguised as a suburb? Number 5. Frisco. You turn the car around and head back east, deep into the belly of the beast, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And right at its northern edge, you find our halfway point, Frisco. This isn't just a city, it's an advertisement for the American dream Texas style. Everything is new, shiny, and expensive. You drive past the Dallas Cowboys headquarters, past gleaming corporate campuses, and through seas of master-planned communities with names like the Lakes of Prestwick. It's immaculate, it's successful, and it is one of the most dangerous thirst traps on our list. The price of admission to this suburban paradise is staggering. According to Zillow's mid-year 2025 data, the median home value here is pushing $700,000. You pay that premium for the top-tier schools, the low crime rates, and the perfectly manicured green lawns. But that last part, the green lawn, is the tell. It's a symbol of a promise that this city's water supply can no longer keep. Frisco and dozens of other North Texas suburbs get their water from the North Texas Municipal Water District, which relies on a series of man-made reservoirs like Lake Lavon. Here's the problem. During a typical Texas summer, these reservoirs look like giant, shrinking puddles. The shorelines recede, revealing acres of cracked, parched earth. Yet the HOAs in these $700,000 neighborhoods will still send you a violation notice if your lawn isn't a perfect emerald green. The cognitive dissonance is breathtaking. You are being forced to pour thousands of gallons of a shrinking resource onto your grass just to maintain the artificial aesthetic that props up your property value. When the inevitable Stage 4 water restrictions kick in and your lawn dies, so does your curb appeal. And in a town built on appearances, that's a direct hit to your equity. And if you think a city living in denial is bad, stick around. We're about to visit a town where the lake is already gone. What's more absurd? Paying a fortune for a house in the desert, or paying a fortune for a house with a perfect lawn that's draining the last drops from a dying lake? Number 4. Leander. You escape the Dallas sprawl and head south, straight into the gravitational pull of Austin, where the real estate insanity has been metastasizing for years. You arrive in Leander, a city that perfectly illustrates the third stage of a housing bubble: denial giving way to panic. For years, Leander was sold as the affordable gateway to the hill country dream. You could get a brand new $500,000 house with a view of the rolling hills and easy access to the jewel of Central Texas, Lake Travis. That was the promise. The reality is a catastrophe. You drive through subdivisions where construction is still happening, yet the primary water source for the city has effectively failed. Leander relies on Lake Travis, and after years of relentless drought and explosive population growth, the lake's water level has dropped so low that the city's intake pipes are literally sucking air. This isn't a forecast, it's not a warning, it already happened. According to KXAN Austin, the situation became so dire that Leander was forced to implement emergency measures, including, at one point, physically trucking in water to keep the taps flowing. Let that sink in. We are talking about a modern American suburb with home prices soaring past $500,000 that had to resort to the same water delivery system as a remote desert outpost. The entire value proposition of this city was built on a lake that is now a dusty, barren canyon in many places. What is a lakeside community worth when the lake is gone? Zillow and Redfin data from early 2025 show the market here is already showing signs of stress, with price cuts becoming more common. But this goes beyond a simple market correction. People paid a massive premium for a lifestyle that no longer exists. They bought the view, the boating, the escape, and what they got was a front-row seat to an ecological and infrastructural collapse. If you bought a home advertised as waterfront and the water disappeared, would you consider that a market risk, or would you call it fraud?
Number 3. San Antonio. You leave the Austin chaos behind and head for a city that feels older, more grounded, San Antonio. It's a beautiful city, a place with soul. You see the Alamo, the cypress-lined Riverwalk, the historic missions. It feels permanent, stable. But beneath the centuries of history lies the single most precarious water situation in urban America. This entire city of 1.4 million people is living on a prayer, and that prayer is for rain to fill one single invisible source. San Antonio gets almost all of its water from the Edwards Aquifer, a massive underground network of porous limestone. It's not a lake you can see, it's a geological sponge. And when the water level in that sponge drops, the entire city goes on life support. The San Antonio water system has a color-coded chart of drought restrictions that every local knows by heart. You buy a home here, let's say for the median price of around $310,000, according to the San Antonio Board of Realtors data for early 2025, and you are immediately subject to these rules. In Stage 2, you can only water your lawn once a week, on a specific day, during a specific time window. In Stage 3, that gets even tighter. Think about what that does to your investment. The value of your home is tied to its curb appeal, especially in the blistering Texas heat. But you are legally forbidden from keeping your lawn alive. You're watching your biggest asset turn brown and crispy, and there is nothing you can do about it. The entire city's growth, the endless new subdivisions sprawling north and west, is drawing from a finite source that is already pushed to its limit. This isn't a temporary problem, it's a permanent condition of living here. You are buying into a 30-year mortgage in a city that measures its water supply week by week. Would you rather live in a city with guaranteed water but a brutal housing market, or an affordable city where your water access could be cut off every summer?
Number 2. Lubbock. You head north into the Panhandle, and the world opens up into vast, flat plains that stretch forever under a sky so big it feels like it might swallow you whole. This is Lubbock, the hub of West Texas. It's a city that prides itself on its resilience, its agricultural backbone, and Texas Tech University. Everything here seems solid, built to last. But this entire city, its agriculture, its economy, and every single home value is built on a slowly collapsing foundation, the Ogallala Aquifer. This isn't just a water source, it's one of the largest underground aquifers in the world, stretching across 8 states. And here in West Texas, it's being drained at an unsustainable rate. According to a landmark study by Texas Tech University scientists, the Ogallala aquifer under this region is projected to be functionally gone, meaning no longer economically viable to pump within decades, not centuries, decades. Imagine buying a $300,000 home today, as Redfin's early 2025 data shows is the median, knowing that in 20 or 30 years, the very thing that makes the city livable might be gone. That's not an investment, that's a ticking time bomb. What makes it even more insidious is how slow and invisible the crisis is. You don't see the aquifer shrinking from your living room window, you just see the endless cotton fields, irrigated with water that will not be replenished for thousands of years. The agriculture here is drawing on an ancient, finite resource, and the city's population and housing market are growing right along with it. When the water truly runs out, the farms will die, the jobs will vanish, and Lubbock will face an existential crisis that will make any housing market crash look like a minor inconvenience. It's the ultimate long con. If a government report told you your entire city's water supply had 20 years left, would you sell everything, or would you plant an even bigger lawn? Number 1. San Marcos. And this is it, the end of the road. This isn't just another stop, this is the epicenter of the entire Texas water crisis, the place where the fantasy of infinite growth smashes headfirst into geological and legal reality. You drive into San Marcos and it is genuinely beautiful. You see the crystal clear San Marcos River, so pristine you can see to the bottom, bubbling up from the San Marcos Springs. It feels like an oasis. And that's what makes it the most dangerous thirst trap of them all. This city is ground zero for the I-35 corridor explosion, one of the fastest growing regions in the entire country, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Developers are in a frenzy, throwing up subdivisions and selling the Austin-San Antonio lifestyle at a premium. The Austin Board of Realtors shows median home prices here have shot past $375,000, a number that would have been unthinkable a decade ago for what was once a quiet college town. But here's the fatal flaw they don't put on the glossy brochures. That beautiful, clear river is fed by the San Marcos Springs, which is the primary outlet for the Edwards Aquifer. And those springs are so environmentally critical, they are federally protected under the Endangered Species Act. I need you to hear what I just said. The water source for this entire booming metropolis is legally subordinate to the survival of a handful of tiny, endangered creatures like the Texas blind salamander. This means the city's right to pump water is not guaranteed. When the aquifer level drops during a drought, a federal mandate can force them to slash pumping to keep the springs flowing. Your $400,000 mortgage is literally dependent on the water level in a salamander's living room. It is the most absurd, high-stakes, and completely unavoidable conflict imaginable. You have unstoppable development on a collision course with an immovable federal law. It's a bomb with a lit fuse, and the only question is how long the fuse is. When the next record-breaking drought hits and the courts step in, what happens to the value of a home that can't be guaranteed a water supply? It turns out the biggest bubble in Texas real estate isn't the price, it's the aquifers. We've driven through cities fighting hurricanes, draining ancient desert wells, and legally required to keep salamanders hydrated before their own citizens. The price you see on a listing is just the down payment. The real bill comes when you turn on the tap. So, is this just temporary drought panic, or is the entire Texas growth model fundamentally broken? Drop your verdict in the comments and subscribe so you don't get sold a dream that's about to turn to dust.